Yeah, welcome to Cal's Barn. The first part of this is just going to be an introductory video to what I'm doing on the back half of the car for sheet metal repairs so that the specific repair will make a little more sense. The whole problem started with the trunk floor being basically gone, and in order to repair that I have to have something to weld it to, and pretty much everything that it was supposed to be welded to was gone as well. So I had to repair the wheel wells. Obviously both sides. All of this stuff is both sides. There's three body mounts, one above the axle, one a couple feet behind it, and one at the very back. And I had to do some repairs to the quarter panels. That may be a whole separate issue. There's a trunk floor drop that I had to repair, actually remake. And there are floor braces that had to be installed. And the tail light bracket, the bottom of that was rusted out. So all of that has to be done, and what follows this will be a separate video on one of those sections. So I'm trying to replace one of the body mounts on this car. There's 7 on each side. The one I'm replacing right now is on the driver's side. I've replaced the matching one over here on the passenger side, and the one I'm replacing is right in front of the axle, and unfortunately it's right behind those braces for the rear seat. So it's very awkward to reach, and it's on top of the, this would be the front of the trunk. So it's all the way to the very, very front of the trunk. Kind of hard to access. The problem is the old cages are basically rusted away, and if I try to take the bolt out, the cage nut just starts rotating because the cage won't hold it anymore, not strong enough. And then it just spins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a hole, and I think you can see the black lines here making a rectangle around that cage that I've put on there. Cage is just there for demonstration purposes. It'll be down inside when it's all done. But I'm going to cut the hole in that and grind away the cage itself, whatever little is left of it, and hit the nut with a torch, hold it with some vice grips, and try to pull the bolt out from underneath. It may require a little help so that somebody can undo the bolt before it cools off. I'm afraid if I heat the nut from the top, by the time I get down to undo the bolt, it's going to be cooled off too much and it won't turn. So that's the plan. Hopefully there won't be so much heat that it starts the rubber bushing on fire. And then when it's all done, we'll get the new cage on, and I've made some special cages out of heavier 16 gauge sheet metal. The sides are welded, the corners are welded, and these are longer so that in this particular location I can use a longer cage, and that will give me more resistance against the nut turning. Hopefully I'll never need to worry about that, but if somebody else takes it apart in the future, it should come apart without the cage opening up on them. So, time to start cutting a hole. Oh, and the other thing I had to do, I had to get this grommet out, which was a pain. That's the fuel sending wire, and I need to get that out of the way so that I can get the whole wiring harness out of the way, because I don't want to break it or cut it or hit it with a torch accidentally when I'm working on this. Oh, this is so much fun. I finally got the wiring harness out. That end on it, that plug-in, kept getting caught, so I'd get inside the car, pull it out a ways, then it would catch down underneath here somewhere, and I'd have to come back, crawl underneath the car, get that loose, go back inside. I did that about 3 times, and I'm back in the trunk area again. In case you haven't seen it before, I'm literally in the trunk area. The floor was so bad, most of it was missing. This is my new piece that I've installed so far. And I went in to pull the harness out from this side, so I want to get it out of the way of what I'm working here. So I'm going to bring it up in here. So I'm going to pull it out, and I discover that it's clipped to this brace here. So Now I got to go back inside the car, pull that loose, and come back in here, crawl back underneath the car into the trunk area so that I can get that harness out of the way. And maybe this time I'll remember to bring my angle grinder so I can start cutting that hole as well without having to go back out and get it again. And here you can see why I missed that clip. That clip is actually white, but there's so much dirt in here that that clip is right there, and this side of it looks black right now. So I did get the hole cut, and I did remember to bring the angle grinder with me this time. But I got the two lines that go fore and aft in the car, and then this back one, I got those cut with the angle grinder, but I couldn't cut the one in the front. So I had to crawl out from the car again and go get my cutoff wheel on a die grinder and use that to do the one in the front. So there was another trip in and out of the trunk area. I used that belt sander to sand off the corners of the cage nut, and then pried that out. That's just the top of the cage nut, and that's what's underneath it. Lots and lots of rust. There's probably a nut hidden under there somewhere. Let's see if I can clean that off with a screwdriver, see what's underneath it. Yeah, there's a nut under there, I think. Yep. You can start to see it now, square nut. All right, I've got the top of the cage off. Cleaned a lot of the rust out from there, all the loose stuff that I could get to anyways. I'll have to show you what I did to the hose so I could get in there. And there's what I did to be able to vacuum that channel out there where that cage nut is. I wanted to get as much of the rust out as far down as I could. I checked, I can get vice grips on those two outer flanges right here. It's hard to cut those off with the nut on there. So I can squeeze down on those enough with the vice grips that it should hold the nut in place while I have a friend of mine come over tomorrow and unbolt it from the bottom when I heat it from the top. And then I'll put the new cage in there. There's the width of the new cage. You can see it's wider. It's a lot wider than the one that was in there. I think it's made out of heavier material. I'm not 100% sure of that. The old one is so rusty it's hard to tell what thickness that sheet metal was. Anyways, tomorrow he's going to come on in the afternoon and we should be able to get that out of there. Well, I got the bolt out, and the nut. I heated the nut from the top here with my acetylene torch. It was sitting in here. Heated that up, got it basically red hot, and then a friend of mine had him underneath the car so that when that was hot, he could unbolt it and it came right out. So now I have to take my little belt sander and sand these ends of the cage off, sand that back down to where it's flush with the metal underneath it there, and then I can weld on the new cage with the nut inside it, of course. I'm not showing all the grinding, there's not much point in that, but I got this one ground. That side is down, the flange, I guess, it's sticking up is down flush with this piece, so now I just got to grind that off. Took me maybe 1 to 2 minutes to grind that down. It'll take probably a little longer to grind the rest down. I need to grind that down flush because the new nut is actually going to be into this area over here. So I'll grind that off flush. The weld is going to be out beyond where that is. So I'll show you what it is like when it's all cleaned up. Then I'll try and remember to time this too. All right, I got everything sanded down and sprayed some cold galvanizing paint on there. I got a good deal on some of that, so I sprayed that as far around down each end as I could. Doing that was a little awkward, so there's a lot more paint in there than necessary, and I'm going to have to just go in the house and let it dry for a while. If I stay out here, I'll want to mess with it. Took me about 7 minutes to finish sanding off the side, the second side, And probably 1 to 2 minutes of that was spent restarting the thing because it was such an awkward position. I kept accidentally turning the belt sander off, and it was awkward to turn it back on. All right, the paint dried. I got the cage in there, and I marked with marker around the edges here so I know where it goes, where it's centered. Obviously the hole needs to be centered. And once I put the nut inside, it's going to be hard to center it, so that's why I had to mark it. So now I can pick that up, put the nut in, and weld it up. Well, I got it welded in. The weld on the left side there is ugly, ugly, ugly. The problem was I couldn't see what I was doing. I'm trying to weld, obviously can't see it from here. I have to get in through this little triangle here, and the hood gets in the way. Maybe if I had goggles on, it would have been a little easier. But it should be sufficient to hold the thing. And the one on the right's in pretty good shape. I put the bolt in there so that I could verify that I can indeed, I got it in the right place. I can move that all around in there. So I'm happy with that. The bolt is actually bottoming on the opening in the floor, or in the brace. Actually, it would be under there. So looks like it's in good shape. And you'll notice I marked it to cut further out here. The reason I didn't, actually if I had, it probably would have made it easier to get to that weld. But the reason I didn't do that is that this replacement panel in here is going to be flat from one end to the other. And if you look right here, it actually dips down, and that would have made it harder to fit a patch panel in there. So I'm not sure which one's going to be more difficult, making a patch panel with that in it or getting to that weld down there. But it's done now, so that's the way it'll be. All right, I've got the new patch panel made up. You can see this is the original, had some glue on it and markings for my center line. And let me put them together and show you the difference in size. This left side and this bottom side are lined up right next to each other. And that's the amount of excess that was removed by the grinding wheel, cutting wheel. So if I had used this piece, I'd had a pretty big gap all the way around that I had to fit. And this new piece is a nice snug fit all the way around. And there you can see the fit up. A little bigger gap here and here than I'd like, but it's still pretty close. Shouldn't be a problem. I'll clean the paint off around here so that I can weld it and get it welded in. I'm not going to show all the welding. There's enough videos on here about welding sheet metal that you can find on that, so I'm just going to go ahead and weld it up. All right, paint's cleaned off. Well, I got the tack welds in more or less. But just so you don't think everything goes perfect. This side went pretty well. Apparently the sheet metal on this side was a little thinner, and I blew 2 big holes through that. I blew a hole here, but that was kind of my mistake. I held it too long. So I had to turn the welder down so that I could finish these up, and I got to fill those holes now. But we'll get it done. And there we go, welded, sanded, and ready to paint. Well, that's one more cage nut for a body mount done. Hope you enjoyed this more than I did. I've been in and out of this thing probably, I swear, 50 times. And since it's a foot off the ground from where it normally would be, getting out of this thing and getting into it is a real pain.